Have you lost weight before but found that you had to diet in order to get the weight to come off? Are you looking to lose weight in a more sustainable way in this coming year? If you've ever wished that you could lose a substantial amount of weight and keep it off and that you could do it without dieting, you are in luck because that's exactly what this video is all about. Hi, my name is Concita Thomas and I'm a food and fitness strategist, and I help women who are over 40 lose 30 plus pounds and keep it off, you guessed it, without dieting and without exercise. But before I started doing this, I was actually on my own journey to get that type of result for myself. You see, I was able to get weight to come off, but I had to be pretty strict in order to do so, and I was never able to get it to stay off because, quite frankly, the methods that I was employing in order to get the weight off were not sustainable, and thus the results were not either. But I finally did crack the code on getting that done, losing weight without dieting and getting the weight to stay off. And these are 5 lessons that I've learned along the way. All right, go ahead and grab your pen and paper because this is definitely going to be something that you want to take notes on. So the first lesson that I learned on this journey of losing over 60 pounds and keeping it off was that I had to take the quick fix off the table. You see, I am someone who has done pretty much every diet in the book, and quite frankly, they all worked for as long as I was willing to work them. The problem was they weren't things that I could work long term. So whenever I would get started trying to lose weight in a more sustainable, in a more sane way, I would be a little bit disappointed by the results. You see, it's not that the results were slow, it's just that I was very used to the breakneck pace of rapid results that come along with these extreme programs. And so seeing, 1 or 2 pounds leave every week, or sometimes going 2 weeks and only seeing 1 pound go, just did not feel fast enough. And as long as it was an option to just go back to the quick fix, it felt really hard to stay the course. But one thing I noticed is the moment that I got fed up and that I got sick and tired, and this happened right around after I had my first child, when I took the quick fix off the table, all of a sudden it was not so hard to stay the course. So the lesson was, as long as the quick fix is an option, your sustainable approach will feel slow. You want it to feel good? Take the quick fix off the table. The second lesson that I learned on this journey was that sustainability beats intensity. So many times when we get started and we're on a weight loss journey, we want to know, what works? What's going to give us the quickest results? What has the track record of just melting fat off of our body at rapid pace? And unfortunately, as I kind of alluded to in that first point, those are not always the approaches that we're going to be able to do long term. What I started to notice was that sustainability and approach really did beat intensity, because while I wasn't able to drop an insane amount of weight very quickly, what I was able to do was to keep going for the long haul, namely during times where I would normally fall off with my intense approach, meaning during the holidays, during vacation, during visits from family, I was able to keep going. So the lesson in that for me was that, while there may be 99 ways out there to get the fat to come off faster, the one way that I can do repeatedly and consistently really is the holy grail, if you will, for me, because that's what I'm going to be able to do long term. Therefore, I'm going to be able to keep getting results, and ultimately I'm going to be able to keep results. The third lesson I learned on this journey was that being able to eat moderately takes practice, not abstinence. What I mean by that is, so often on my journey, I would give up whole food groups, I would give up any type of junk food, and I would even lose extra pounds to give myself the desired wiggle room to eventually be able to add back in sweets and other more indulgent food without instantly gaining weight. And spoiler alert, that didn't work. What would happen every time is that once I reintroduced the sweets, once I reintroduced the more indulgent foods, I would have a really hard time eating those in a moderate fashion. And what I figured out was that abstinence was not the way to moderation. Surprise, surprise. It should have been obvious, but it was not. What I started doing after I had my first child and quick fixes were no longer on the table is I started practicing having a little bit of all of the things that I wanted. I started practicing taking the constraints off. And what I noticed was that over time, I was able to have some of something sweet, have some of something indulgent without feeling like I just needed to polish it all off, scarf it down to get it out of my system. Because the truth of the matter is that it was always an option. It was always going to be something that I could eat. And when I was no longer in this feast or famine, if you will, with sweets and indulgent food, all of a sudden, from practice, I was able to eat it moderately. I have more tips for you, but before I go on, I want to know, are there any lessons that you've learned? Have you been able to lose weight without dieting? Have you been able to keep it off? If so, what lessons did you learn along your journey? Let me know in the comments. All right, so the fourth lesson that I learned is that a flexible plan is better than a rigid plan. So in all of my previous weight loss attempts, I always followed very rigid prescription-like plans. I mean, down to how many ounces of sweet potato I could have, how many florets of broccoli I could have, etc. I mean, it was prescription. And what I noticed was I would often follow the plan for 6, 8, 12 weeks, what have you. I would get a great result, and then the plan was over. And I would have a hard time transitioning back into regular life. And I didn't really learn anything from following those plans. Sure, I would lose some weight, but I didn't really learn how to just eat like a normal person. So it was either just, lost eating whatever, or weighing and measuring every morsel of my food in order to get a result. What I discovered was that a flexible plan was much better. So by that I mean, if I know that I need to have a protein with all my meals, I need to have, 3 servings of vegetables throughout the course of the day, I can have starch or I can have fat, I just need to balance those out during the meal. What I noticed is not only was I able to stick to my eating way of life, if you will, more consistently, I was able to do it everywhere. So funny story, I, back in the day, used to take a food scale with me to restaurants. That's right, so embarrassing, but my husband could tell you I would sneak a food scale into my purse into restaurants because I was afraid that I would overeat, like I'd have too much chicken. If it was supposed to be a 6-ounce breast, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't 6.5. But by adopting a flexible eating plan, I was able to go out to restaurants with my husband. I was able to go over to a friend's house to eat without the fear that I was somehow messing up or falling off plan, because I had this flexible guideline, if you will, that I could flex within, and there was really no such thing as messing up. However, with a rigid plan, it was very much do or don't. Either you're on plan or you messed up and your results are going bye-bye. All right, and that leads me to the 5th lesson that I learned the hard way. It was that a flexible plan beats no plan at all. You see, there was a point when I was trying to break up with rigid plans, and I really got bit by like the intuitive eating bug. It was just like, listen to your body, eat whatever you want, eat when you're hungry. If you listen closely enough, your body will tell you what to do. Hello, that was not the case for me. And what I've learned is, even with many of my clients, that's not the case for them. Here's why. When you have spent years and even decades eating either with reckless abandon or ignoring your body's signals because you're trying to stick to a very rigid plan, just going to no plan at all is oftentimes too daunting. You feel lost. You don't really know what to do. Quite frankly, many of your body's your biofeedback has been hijacked. It's hard to even know, what to do based on how you're feeling, because quite frankly, if you've been on plans where you're only able to eat at this time and, this much, you have trained yourself to ignore your body's signals. What I found was that having a flexible plan where I had, general targets that I was trying to meet in terms of things that I was trying to include with every meal. Also, that flexible plan included how I should feel with my meals, what eating protein should do for me, what moderate amounts of starch should do for me. That type of plan encouraged me to tune into my body and to ask myself very important questions like, how did I feel after that meal? Did I really feel fuller longer when I included protein? So having that flexible framework gave me some boundaries to feel safe within, and it also encouraged me to tune into my body signals to see what my body was telling me so that I could eventually eat in a much more intuitive way without sacrificing my results and without sacrificing the sustainability of those results. And so that's it. Those were the 5 lessons that I've learned while losing over 60 pounds after having my first child. And if you're wondering what flexible framework I use, it's actually something that I have available for you. It's a free download. It's called the Figure Friendly Meal Checklist. You can actually get the flexible framework that I use to this day, that my clients use to this day, to begin this journey. So if this was helpful for you, please don't forget to subscribe. Also hit the bell so that you get notifications when I post videos. And if you can't wait until the next video, then be sure to connect with me over on Instagram. I'm Concita Thomas over there as well. And if you want to really get to know me and hear like the behind the scenes and like some of my true thoughts on all things food, fitness, weight loss, and just really living a fierce life, then be sure to check out my podcast, The Fierce Life with Concita Thomas, and I will be leaving that link below in the description as well. Until next time, stay fierce.